Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel The Bright Side. Please like and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates. Every second we're awake, we're taking in unfathomably large amounts of information. Together, our five senses process 11 million bits of it every second. But while the unconscious mind continuously gathers these millions of bits, the conscious mind can only handle about 40 of them at any given moment, just a tiny fraction of what we take in. This is just one of the reasons that we so often find it difficult to concentrate on our work. There are severe limits to how much we're able to focus on at once. And keeping the spotlight on the 40 most important bits is hard when the other 10.9 million usually contain more than a few temptations. So in my constant quest to improve my own ability to focus on my work, I recently picked up the book Hyperfocus by Chris Bailey to see if it had any new focus boosting tricks that I could hide up my sleeves, which are honestly kind of short, so I'm not sure how many tricks are gonna fit up there. But for me, this book was a great deep dive into many topics surrounding focus and concentration. 3 of the most important ideas that I took away from the book. Let's start with the skill of meta-awareness, the state of knowing what you're thinking about. Our minds love to wander, and they do it a lot. By some estimates, half the time we're awake. And when your mind is wandering, you're not really aware of what it's focused on. And sometimes this is okay, but when you're trying to focus on your work, you want to reduce the time your mind spends wandering, and meta-awareness is the tool you use to do that. When you're aware of where your mind is, you can consciously guide it back to where it needs to be after you catch it wandering. Hyperfocus spends a lot of time talking about ways you can improve this meta-awareness skill. But here's one of the most important tips that I took away from the book. Create some kind of regular reminder to simply check in on the state of your thoughts and the state of your mind. Bailey's suggestion is to create what he calls an hourly awareness chime using a timer or maybe an alarm on your phone. When it goes off, you ask yourself, where's my mind right now? Over the past hour, have I been focused or has my mind been wandering freely? Have I been working with intention or maybe just jumping from task to task on autopilot, as I get bored of one task and then another? And over the last hour, have I been working on the most important thing that I should have been working on? And by using this external chime and external system to help govern your internal self-discipline, by using this over time, you get better and better at continuously exercising this meta-awareness as you work. However, sometimes it's actually a good thing to let your mind wander. Throughout the book, Bailey makes reference to 2 opposing states, hyperfocus and scatterfocus. As you can probably guess, during hyperfocus you block out everything except for one singular object of attention. During hyperfocus, gets blocked out along with everything else so that you can slip into a state of flow and actually execute on your intentions. But as you're probably well aware, hyperfocus is a difficult state to maintain over a long period of time, especially if you're feeling bored or stressed or in a distracting environment. Which is why it's very important to try to go into your work sessions in a positive state of mind, but also to create a distraction-free work environment. By pushing out everything else that could be a distraction, you enable yourself to focus on those most important 40 bits. And if you're curious about how to set up an environment like that, I've got a whole video on it. I'll link that down the description below so you can check it out after you watch this video. But hyperfocus isn't the best state for every purpose. Not only is it taxing after a while, but because it leans so heavily on your brain's prefrontal cortex, it's also a state where you're less creative. So to get the most from it, you need to slip out of it from time to time in exchange for its exact opposite, scatterfocus, a state where you intentionally let your mind wander. This mode of thought is often terrible for what we tend to narrowly define as productivity, immediate work output, but it's great for creativity. And if we look at a longer time scale than the 5 seconds your boss catches you not typing on your keyboard, we can probably agree that creativity and productivity go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other, and scatterfocus lets your mind wander around different thoughts in a more creative fashion, finding new connections between them. In the book, Bailey is very clear about one thing. Scatterfocus is not the same thing as unconscious mind wandering, the type of mind wandering that we usually engage in. The key difference here is intentionally. In scatterfocus, you intentionally let your mind wander in one of three different modes. First, there's capture mode. In this mode, Bailey says you get out a piece of paper, where you open up a new note on your computer, and then you just let your mind wander freely for 10 or 15 minutes, writing down observations and thoughts as they come. And by the end of the capture mode session, you might find yourself with a list of projects you want to check in on, or people you want to reconnect with, maybe just a list of random ideas. I know personally when I do this, I always end up with more than a few different video ideas. Secondly, there is problem crunching mode. In this mode, instead of letting your mind wander completely free, you pick an object of focus, maybe a problem that you're stuck on, and you let your mind wander around that in a sort of non-linear, relaxed fashion as you maybe go for a walk or a bike ride, which I try to do pretty much every day. This is actually very similar to the walking meditations that Cal Newport talks about in his book, Deep Work, or the diffused mode style of thinking and problem solving that Barbara Oakley talks about in her book, A Mind for Numbers. That's sort of a lot of common threads around here. And what's really great about this mode is you are thinking about the problem that you were working on during hyperfocus, but you're thinking about it in a much more relaxed state, allowing your entire brain to sort of mull over the problem. The illustration that Barbara Oakley gives in A Mind for Numbers is of a pinball table. If you're using that hyperfocus mode, it's almost like a tightly gripped cluster, those bouncers, that keeps the ball bouncing around in one very specific area of table. Whereas in the diffused mode or in scatterfocus, using the entire table, it's like a very loosely grouped, spaced out group of those bouncers, so the ball can go basically wherever it needs to go. And in these modes, you often find that new insights come that wouldn't have come during hyperfocus. Finally, there's habitual mode, where you, again, let your mind wander freely, but you do so while doing the dishes, or doing something that doesn't take a whole lot of mental effort. And personally, on a pretty much daily basis, I tend to combine capture mode and habitual mode, often go for a walk or I'll go for a bike ride, not really doing problem country mode and only thinking about a specific thing most of the time. But when thoughts come to me, I've got the voice memos app on my watch or my phone, so I can record the thoughts and insights that come to me. And I find that again, when I'm out on these walks, and I'm out of these bike rides, I often get ideas that I would have never gotten if I was just sitting at my desk trying to write. And that's really the purpose of this scatterfocus state. Because you're more relaxed, you think in a less linear fashion, and you get more ideas as a result. And then when you switch back to hyperfocus, you can take action on those ideas, especially if you can learn how to set stronger intentions at the outset of a hyperfocus session. This is my third big takeaway from this book. Just as my friend Charles Cornell stressed that intentionally is the most important element to deliberate practice, setting strong and specific intentions is also a key element to actually getting really any work done. So what makes an intention a good one? Well, for me there is one key question to ask here. When you sit down to work, ask yourself if the intention that you've set is specific enough to make your next action an obvious one. Well, that's actually not a very good intention, because it leaves a lot of room for interpretation, and writing a video script might be a multi-day process. So instead I could rephrase that as write a rough draft of the first main body point of this script. Again, it's a multi-day process, so if I know I'm writing on one point, I'm much more likely to get started quickly. And additionally, this might even be more important, I know that I'm writing a rough draft, that's my intention. And that's gonna stop me from making edits, which will slow down the initial writing process. Edits are much better made during a second pass through, after I've already gotten the rough draft onto the page. A second example, go to the gym. Again, a lot of room for interpretation there. So things are gonna be a lot better if I know what I'm gonna do when I get to the gym. I know which exercises I'm gonna do, what order I'm going to do them in, how many sets and how many intended reps. This is actually part of the reason why I work with an online coach who sets that programming for me ahead of time. But even if I wasn't, I would always make sure to go into the gym with a plan. Now for me, the absolute most important element to getting my work done is still interest, care, wanting to do the work that is in front of me. But the reality is, all of us have things that we sometimes have to do that we don't want to do, and this applies to people who overhaul their job. Personally, I love being a YouTuber. I love being a content creator. There's a lot of freedom involved, there's a lot of creativity involved, but still there are small parts of the job that I still just don't want to do sometimes. Or sometimes my brain wants to put my main job on the back burner because of some other current obsession. And this is where intentionally really shines, because when you get specific, when you make your next actions completely obvious, and when you tailor your environment for focus, that's when your self-discipline comes in and allows you to get your work done, even if it's not exactly what you want to in the moment. And that is the crux, the main part of this lesson that I took from this book. Now, one thing that can really help you to set these intentions when you're working is having a well-maintained productivity system. As David Allen famously put it, our brains are for having ideas, not for holding them. Which is why you won't have a well-maintained, organized external system, a single source of truth, if you will, for recording the details of all of your tasks, your events and your ideas. It's the system that allows you to make sure nothing ever slips through the cracks in your life. In the class, we go over several different categories of apps: your task manager, your calendar, or your note-taking app, plus file management methods for both digital and physical documents. We talk about how to set these apps up so they're organized, so that they work together in harmony, and so that you reduce the friction involved in getting things into them. Additionally, we talk about some methods and some interesting meta skills for making sure the system doesn't become a jumbled mess over time, which would challenge its status as that single source of truth. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe for more. Please like and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates.